Hi, thanks for coming back to the chopping block. So a couple of days ago, the Yankee Marshal posted a video calling out IV 8888 about his pay for play. This is actually a really big thing in the gun industry in general and YouTube gun reviews in particular. I've wanted to do a video on this for a long time, but I haven't had proof of it. And without proof, it just looks like I'm being petty. I've spoken with industry professionals, vendors that have told me about the pricing lists from other YouTube channels. I've known about it for a long time, and a lot of people have been able to put the dots together. I mean, it's fairly obvious what's going on, but until Yankee Marshal posted the proof of it, talking about it just makes you look kind of petty. Now, it's out there in the open, and the first thing that needs to be said is that this isn't just IV 8888. This isn't just them. It's almost every single one of the big channels. See, if you've got a big viewer base, that's a big pile of money. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great that people can make money doing things that are fun, like playing around with gun stuff. But if you got a lot of viewers, you have a big pile of money. Now you have a couple of choices on what to do with that. You can throw up visible sponsors like some channels do, so everybody sees where the advertising revenue is coming from. Or you can take money directly from the manufacturers and retailers and whatnot that you're reviewing and not really bother to tell anyone that that's what's going on. That's the part that's unethical. It's not the fact that they're making money off of it. We want them to make money. I'm not a freaking communist. The problem is that they're making paid advertisements that appear to be unbiased reviews. That is extremely unethical, and it might even be illegal. Now, Yankee Marshal threw a hand grenade into the room with this whole thing, and we're going to see a lot of different videos and statements coming out over the next few days, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll see a lot of excuses. And already, IV 8888 said that, oh, that's an old pricing list, and we don't do things like that anymore. Another big channel that I won't mention because the last time I even hinted at anything about him, he threatened to sue me, has said, oh, I'm entirely Patreon supported. Well, he doesn't have visible sponsors, so I find that difficult to believe. If a large channel doesn't have visible sponsors and they're not taking money, then that means they're throwing away a big pile of money. And you know what? Maybe they've got so much money flowing around that they can afford to do that. But Occam's razor indicates that what they're really doing is they're just taking money and not telling anyone. If he says, I'm Patreon supported, well, does that mean that HK or Springfield Armory or whatever pledges a ton of money through Patreon for him? I don't know. I don't know how it actually works out. He could be lying. He could be just skirting around the truth by saying, oh yeah, I'm Patreon supported, but he's taking the money through Patreon to make what amount to advertisements. And another thing that's important to point out is it's easy to say that anyone who's never done a negative review is biased. Yeah, sure. But just because someone has done a negative review doesn't necessarily mean that they're not also doing paid advertisements. Some of these guys, that one really emotional guy to name names or to not name names, almost certainly only do negative reviews when they get mad that somebody didn't pay them the amount of money that they thought they should be paid. And then we come to channels like mine, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about what makes my channel work. I get stuff to test for free. Some of it, like almost all of the ammo I've tested, has been donated by viewers. Some of it, all of the armor that I've tested, has been donated. Well, there have been a couple that were donated by a retailer, but almost all of it was donated by manufacturers. And the optics that I've tested and reviewed, some have been donated by manufacturers like Primary Arms. Some have been donated by retailers. Actually, none of the ones that you see here right now were donated by a retailer. Optics Planet gave me a few. I've attempted to be as upfront as I can I've attempted to be upfront as often as possible about where this stuff comes from, but I don't want to dedicate a lot of time in each video to saying the manufacturer provided it to me. Usually comes across in something like Premier sent me their body armor to test, that sort of thing. I have made no secret of where this stuff comes from. And if I've been remiss in telling you in each and every video, I apologize, but that's where most of this comes from. I don't pay for very much of the things that I test. Almost all of it is provided to me by either viewers, the manufacturer, or retailers. And it would be fair of you to say that that makes me biased. The fact is that if Primary Arms sends me a thing to review, and if I say something negative about it, they might not want to send me more cool stuff to review. That's fair. And that has happened. Premier is not very happy with me at all because I poked holes in their plates and I told people about it. Some of these vendors really clearly expect to have a paid advertisement when they send me a test article. I don't do that. But it would be fair of you to think that I do. All I can do is tell you that I don't, and you just have to make your decision for yourself. I am not paid by vendors, manufacturers, retailers, whatever. If I ever am paid, if for some reason somebody wants to hand me piles of cash to say nice things about them, I will say so. I will put up a banner at the bottom of the screen and it will say Primary Arms or Holosun or whoever's giving me money. Because that's the ethical way to do advertising. You say, hey, please visit my sponsor, Vortex, or whatever. They're not giving me any money. Nobody is yet and probably never will. Frankly, I haven't been growing my channel much lately anyway because of the time that I've been spending on TFB-TV and AR15.com. Still, I thought it was worth telling you where these things come from, how channels make money and whatnot. And this matters a lot more because remember the whole gunpocalypse thing where all the big gun channels were whining and crying about how YouTube was picking on them. Well, actually, YouTube wasn't picking on gun channels. YouTube dramatically cut the ad share revenue for everyone, whether you make stupid play-along videos screaming like a little girl, like Booty Pants or whatever his name is, the guy from Sweden that got rich by acting like a little girl and playing video games, or you can go out and do ballistic gel tests. No matter what you do on YouTube, everyone lost a ton of ad share. A lot. It went down to about 20% of what it was, and now it's back up to about 50% of what it was a year ago. That's pretty profound. For channels like mine, that amounts to, for me, that means I'm making about $50 a month, when before I was making about $100 a month on ad share. So for me, it doesn't mean that big of a deal. But for folks who do this full time, the folks that make their living off of this, yeah, that was a big thing. Especially remember that those big channels are not just one guy with a camera. They're a camera crew and an editing team and the face. There are several people who rely on that money for their living. And when that got cut in half, that hit them really hard. So it's reasonable to expect that they're charging more for those unbiased reviews that they do. And all of this isn't meant to tell you, don't trust anyone. Although, maybe you shouldn't, because only gullible people trust people. It's meant to provide some perspective so that you understand that much of what you see is paid. And you know what? I think that people who behave in an unethical way should be punished for it. They should be fined. They should at least lose a ton of viewers over it. That's just my opinion, and it's worth every cent that you paid for it. Take it for what you will. I appreciate your support. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great day.
You got